Hello, everybody. Welcome to the servers event, Ask an Editor, in which I have invited my dearest friend and co
Aw.
reader, Ezra, to answer y'all's questions that you have submitted throughout. An important thing is I'm keeping the panel open in case any new questions arise. You can submit or you can just type them in chat, but if you submit it through the panel you get like experience points. So yeah, I currently have the thread open for me anyway, so I'll see it. Yeah, so would you like to introduce yourself, Ezra?
Yes, I am Ezra, as has been established. I'm a writer, as you may know. I also do pretty much my main job is doing freelance editing. So I do like copy editing, developmental editing, and line editing. Do it on a couple different
And better
freelancing
reading.
sites and beta reading. That is accurate. I do it on a couple different freelancing sites and just through direct like client contracts. So I've done many millions of words and a good, I would say probably like 200 or 300 beta reads. I would say at least. I know it's at
Damn.
least. Maybe it's more like 300. It's a lot. It's a lot of beta reads and a lot of editing. And I guess I can post. You can see my little.
Can you
Hold
share your
on.
screen?
What did I send you? Well, I
Oh,
can't. Or I can just post this in the chat.
okay.
Well, the chat's kind of shitty though.
Yeah,
Uh, hold on. I'll post this in the chat.
go ahead.
Here is. I'm a boomer. Hold on. I gotta get back here.
He is indeed a boomer, guys, FYI.
Don't agree with me. Uh huh. Uh huh. So there's my website and my little Upwork profile there in the chat. You can see that people have paid me real money for this. So
Real
I
money.
must be good, right? Um, Something like that. I've also done some ghostwriting, although I don't really like to do that. Uh, but I have done that. I ghost wrote for smut novels the other
Hell
year. That
yeah.
was pretty fun. Very trashy, tropey romance novels. So that was kind of an interesting experience. And yeah, so that's me. And I have
Wow.
read some of Charlie's things, and they're great. She should write more.
Oh my god. Yeah, he has. And I, on a whim, just submitted my entire manuscript and regretted it immediately once I realized I left a very dark scene in there. Of course, Ezra being Ezra, he jumped to that scene immediately, and I was
Yeah, I just skimmed.
mortified.
I skimmed around. Look,
I was,
sometimes you just got to do a word search to see what you're
oh
dealing
my
with.
god. And that's how I knew that I could give this guy dark stuff, because he wasn't that. Well, I
You
don't
wouldn't
know.
believe the shit that I've beta read.
Oh,
I
really?
think I've complained about it. You wouldn't believe. I've read some questionable things. I've read some questionably potentially illegal things
Oh
that I think
shit. Are you required to report
like
those? That's like my first question.
it's not illegal to write it. We're not thought police. I just think that
Okay.
they wouldn't publish it. I guess it's not illegal technically. It's just they wouldn't publish it on Amazon
Uh,
for moral moral reasons or
or
immoral, if you
AKA the
will.
Kindle guidelines.
Yes, it was something that I don't think would have got through those Kindle guidelines. Uh, but it is what it is. What are you gonna do? But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I do. So I do that pretty much full time. So I'm always
Mm-hmm.
beta reading or editing something. And Charlie suggested, ugh, I have cat hair in my mouth. Charlie suggested this, and I was like, that seems like a good idea.
Now, you're
Show people what I
missing
do or
some
what editors
stuff.
do.
You're missing some stuff just as like background information. Ezra also teaches classes. He mentions that. He
It's
meant,
true.
and you also tend bar.
Oh yeah, that is also true. Well, it's not relevant, but it is true.
No.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Right.
I do like event bartending. It's for like weddings mostly, which is pretty fun actually. It's
Mm-hmm.
better than like being at a bar till 2 a.m. with a bunch of drunkies. So yeah, I had like actually that's what I was doing, bro. That's what I was doing like the last 2 weeks. I had three weddings in the last 2 weeks. Two of them were on one weekend, and I was like, I'm dead.
Yeah, I
basically.
believe that. Weddings are so
Yeah, the
stressful.
20, like a back-to-back, like Friday and Saturday wedding. That was crazy. We
Indeed.
did make an absurd amount of money though, so that was nice.
Look at you to edit your
Look at
apartment.
me. Yeah,
You know,
it's gonna be
here's the
great. You won't even
thing.
believe the amount of acoustic treatment that I'm gonna have to do for this home theater is
Home
astronomical.
theater. Okay, flex, if you will. I wanted to say something I forgot.
Will.
Rich boy. Indeed, indeed. I wanted to say something that I forgot about. Never mind. If I forgot about it, it's probably not important, right?
This can't be important.
Okay.
I
So,
totally agree.
in light of that, let's get into writing and the
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to be biased. I want to cover some basics first so that we're all on the same page, even the people watching this later on. So I'm going to cover some broad topics. Okay.
Yeah.
The first question that I have is what's the difference between a beta read, a developmental edit, a line edit, and a copy edit?
Sure. So the general way that it goes is that your the order of operations generally is like beta read, uh, developmental edit, line edit, copy edit, and then final proofread.
Mm-hmm.
So the beta read is like you read through the whole book, and then most of the time you just get like a report back at the end. So
Mm-hmm.
the report is going to go over like, you know, plot, like structure, like pacing, like character development, tone. I talk about the pros, some in mine. Not everybody's gonna have like the exact same thing, but like it's more of like a top level overview than getting into like, oh, in this, you know, this scene like didn't work for this and this reason. Like that's like a little too detailed that you wouldn't expect that from a beta report. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, unless it's like, a pivotal scene or whatever. But um and then and that's going to be like the cheapest thing too, obviously, because it takes the least time.
Mm-hmm.
So then like after a beta read, a developmental edit is kind of like a beta read but just like way more detailed. So it is going to usually consist of inline commentary in the book and maybe like a post chapter report and also a big editorial report that kind of goes over everything that ostensibly should be changed in the book,
Mm-hmm.
um, to make it, better, I guess, or at least in the editor's opinion. Um, and then after that's done, after you take that feedback in, uh, you can move into like line editing, which
Mm-hmm.
is where uh, a line editing is like a subjective editing pass where a line editor is going to go in and change the words that you've used in a sentence or change the sentence structure or change the paragraphing or whatever, uh, all in the pursuit of just making things read better and smoother. uh, like I said, line editing is subjective, so like you're not going to have a line editor edit two things the same way. And they might not even edit it the same way 2 days in a row if they came back to do it. It's just something that is more about the sound than it's more of an art than a science. uh, And then once that's done, a copy edit is to clean up grammatical errors or misspellings, and also is to make sure that it's kind of like the anal check, I guess. You want to make sure like all of the names are spelled the same way, all of the stylistic choices are done the same way. So it's like if you want your M dashes to have a space on either side, like they all need to have a space on either side. If you want to use UK spelling, you want to make sure that you use that consistently throughout. So they check for consistency in both the style guide that you're using and also in, they're supposed to check your math. If you say that blah 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 and then you do a math thing, it's like, yeah, you should check that to make sure it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
They are also going to check for consistency in like time and places and dates and names and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A copy editor, generally speaking, that should be identical output between two different copy editors.
Mm-hmm.
The only really thing that would be, not that is if somebody was like, oh well, it's an optional to have a comma here or whatever, so like you may not have it between two different ones, but it's not really a subjective thing outside of a couple of subjective grammar rules. And then after that is done, uh generally speaking, you still do like a final proofread that is just like just to look for like a fat fingered like extra space or like a missing quote or a legitimate misspelling.
Mm-hmm.
A proofreader shouldn't really have to know grammar that well,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that all should be done by the time that the copy editor is finished. So you really shouldn't have to be looking for like, oh, should there be a comma there or not? Like it should all be done by then. So yeah, that is those things.
Mm-hmm. So, do. Wait, I had a question in mind. Does this happen cleanly, step by step, all the time, you think?
No. I mean, a lot of the time, like, I mean, that's like, as far as I understand it, like that's like your traditional, uh, you know, publishing pipeline. Like that's what it should be getting done, right?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, a lot of the times I do like a beta read, and people, can take that and take that feedback and you know, not necessarily need like a full developmental edit, or they might just not want to do one or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I also most of the time I also combine like copy editing with the line editing, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if people have like infinite money and time, like it's better to separate those. But most of the time, when you're line editing, like you're going to be cleaning up a lot of that. I
Mm-hmm.
do always tell people they should do a final proofread after that,
Mm-hmm.
especially because when you're doing tracked changes for an edit, like it can kind of introduce some errors, of course, because you're moving stuff around and doing this and that, and like especially with the track changes, it's hard to tell sometimes if like it clipped out a space or like put in something weird.
Mm-hmm.
um but most of the time what I recommend people do is, I mean, pretty much always I think starting with a beta read is a good idea, because like it's like the cheapest thing, it's the quickest thing, and also like if your book needs, if your manuscript needs like a ton of changes,
Mm-hmm.
that's good to learn when you're doing a beta read instead of doing like a giant developmental edit, because it's like it's kind of the same as like why you don't want to jump into like a line edit if you're going to be making big
Mm-hmm.
structural changes, because you're just kind of wasting time. And it's the same thing for a developmental edit,
Mm-hmm.
because if your beta read is like, this needs to get like a ton of stuff changed, then that's when you want to learn it right at the
Mm-hmm.
earliest possible time.
Right. We had a conversation about this, which inspired the idea for this event. Is that I asked you, when is a manuscript ready for a developmental edit?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't feel like I have like a cut and dried thing. I mean, I would say that I would expect it to have been read by a few people, beta readers,
Mm-hmm.
probably before you'd want to go into a developmental edit, or at least like a few people, at least like a few people to have read it, and you don't want to. I don't think you would want to go in with like a first draft, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that being said, like a developmental edit is kind of like it is the same stuff in some ways. The beta read, it's just like far more detailed.
Mm-hmm.
um you're still giving people suggestions on how to improve the pacing and the character arcs and everything that that might be lacking.
Mm-hmm.
But generally I would say that you'd want to do like a beta first, probably. But
Mm-hmm.
you could always hop into it whenever, I guess, as long as it's like close enough that you're going to be close enough that it's not like, okay, you need to like throw out the whole first half of this book or something.
Yeah. So it's like the story's structure is already somewhat stable.
Yeah, at least I would say that at least at least it's like close enough that you're confident that it's not going to be require a 50% like rewrite or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why beta reading is just like, I mean, it's just like a lot easier and faster to just like, if you wonder if you're ready for a developmental edit and it's like I haven't done a beta read, it's just like I feel like just do a beta read quick, and then you'll know, and you'll also get still good feedback on that.
Yeah. I guess it's not really a question so much that I agree with you based on our previous discussion, because
Nice.
I was wondering, like, a lot of members and even everybody on the internet, there are some that will argue, "Oh, don't pay for a beta read," and I was
Yeah.
for a certain time in agreement with that, because you can technically get it for free. But here's the thing, and this is something you find out just simply by trying to get beta reads for free. It is exceedingly difficult to get somebody to finish your entire book online for free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it just takes time. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I know that, I don't want to sound like a salesman or whatever, because obviously like I make money on beta reads, but like I even like, I gotta message that person back. I was baited enough to leave a YouTube comment so you could see how baited I was by it was like some YouTube editor or whatever. And it was like, oh, like top 10 things to not like, spend money on or whatever when you're doing things. And like she had beta reading in there and I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's insane, because like obviously I do think that like, you don't want to spend, it depends on what the price is too. It's like, I think when I was on Fiverr before I was unjustly banned, the less said about that the better. I like, they had like some pro beta, I'm doing air quotes, they had like pro beta readers, and those were like a lot of money. Those were like, I think some of those were maybe like over like $1,000 for like 100K words, which is pretty insane in my opinion. I don't know like how detailed their report would be. I would hope that it would be like way closer to like a developmental thing, but like, yeah, if all the people that are like, well, just get someone to read it for free. It's like, yeah, if you have that's fucking great for you. But I mean, I don't know, man. That's such like a weird argument, because like I feel like no one can get people to read their entire 100,000 plus word manuscript and like actually give good feedback on it. It's not just like, yeah, it was okay, or I liked it, or whatever.
That's the second point also, that you might get somebody to finish your manuscript, but it doesn't mean that they engage with it in a way that like they provide good feedback. And that's the thing too, is like,
it's, yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like paying for a beta read. It's somebody who like, because you're paying them, is thus more motivated to give you something better than this is like cool.
Yeah, like some people too, and I mean like before I guess got into like, I don't know, media analysis. It sounds so pretentious, but like it is something that if you don't learn the reasons why something is like good or bad, or like enjoyable or not enjoyable, like 20 years ago or whatever, it's like, before I started like analyzing media more, I guess it's like, well, yeah, I liked that, but you don't really have the reason to say like why you liked something versus why you didn't like something, especially if it's like similar on paper. And it's like, yeah, not everybody, if you don't learn those things and those reasons for like why a movie or a book like maybe feels like kind of badly paced, or like it didn't really, like on paper it sounded really cool, but then the execution was like, wow, it didn't really turn out good. You don't really have the actionable like analysis to be like, well, here's why that probably didn't like actually turn out well. And like, yeah, I mean, a beta reader that you hire from a reputable website or whatever, like obviously everyone has like, wow, this guy was terrible, like whatever, but it's like, I think especially on Upwork, like, I mean, you can't really like scam. It isn't like Amazon, like you can't just like scam reviews on these sites really. Certainly not when you're talking about like hundreds of reviews. So like, I mean, if someone has done, dozens of beta reads on there and, people are like, yeah, they gave me really good feedback, like, I think I'd be pretty confident to be like, yeah, that person is a legitimate hire.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Actually, it's a perfect segue to my last question that should cover all the basics. And this is going to be something that I think you have to answer for a little bit longer, which is, what would you define as the basics of storytelling? Like when you read through these things.
That's so broad. That's so broad.
Okay, like
are you gonna narrow it down?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to
the
narrow
basics
it.
of storytelling. Okay.
Okay, wait. Let me provide some context. Let me just provide some context. Right. I'm nowhere near a professional beta reader. I have perused many a first draft by a first-time writer, and it's hard to it's hard to precisely delineate what good storytelling is. So as such, there is like a huge amount of like, I should say there are schools of storytelling. So if I were to narrow it down, I would say like, what do you think is the most absolutely fundamental thing that one should at least know about when they write a story?
God, that's so hard. That's so hard. I think
You can
that
do it.
I think that's tricky. I think that, jeez. It does differ. It does differ some for some genres and some people. At least for me, like I have to be invested in the characters to be interested in whatever else is happening. So like, and I do think that like most people are definitely, if not as much as me, leaning more towards that than people who can just be entertained by like, you know, the plot kind of like unrelated to the characters. And some genres that's like a little more usual, you know, like a straight up like detective story, like that's a little more about the plot than the characters, of course. Um but that, I mean, I would say that's one of the biggest things. I mean, I guess if you're looking at like if you're making it like a little more, I guess, granular or whatever for like things to write, I think that one thing that is very important is having like conflict in your scenes, just like the very basic like what are the stakes of the scene, like what does the character want and what is stopping them from getting that, and then like what are they doing about it, is like really important. And I think that that's one thing that I know in my own old writing, like certainly you just kind of have scenes that are just like things are happening but there's not like a goal for the character or like anything that they are really like trying to do aside from just like, I don't know, eating breakfast or whatever. And I think that's something that's really easy to get into too when you're doing like fantasy or sci-fi, and it's like, well, you know, maybe it's like, oh, my world building's so cool or whatever, and it's like, okay, yeah, but like you just need to like link that to something that actually matters, like a character motivation. But yeah, that's my long-winded explanation.
Well, if I can attempt to simplify it, I would say the absolute basic thing of storytelling is conflict. You have to introduce some form of it ASAP. It's
Yeah.
something.
And like also like the you know, the I guess the example that I've used a bunch in that class I teach is like, you know, when you're starting off a story too, especially when it's like fantasy or like whatever, like, you know, you're when you're talking about the start of a story, your reader is going in with, I mean, you should assume they're going in with zero context for anything. Like, yeah, maybe they've read like the back cover blurb, but like you should still write it as if they have zero context for anything that's happening. And so your opening scene needs to be something that is like, it is tricky because you want it to be interesting and, you know, indicative of what's to come. But it also needs to be something that you can parse with basically no context whatsoever, because you have no context whatsoever. So like, I guess the example that I like to use is, you know, like imagine like your like Born Identity or whatever, where, you know, let's say you open a movie on like one guy is like walking down the street and he's furtively looking over his shoulder at another guy who's like, you know, clearly following him or whatever. So like, that is something where, while we don't know the broader context for like why one guy is following another guy, or even necessarily what will happen exactly if he gets caught, you still understand like very easily like the conflict of the scene and like the objective. So like I think that's a good example of like, you know, how you can have a scene that still starts with like something, I guess, exciting, you know, if you're trying to start something exciting. But what's important about that is that the reader contextually understands the basic stakes of the scene without understanding the broader context. Because, you know, if you start that scene off and you explain that like, oh, well, you know, as you know, Jason Bourne, you know, escaped from this spy agency and this other guy is chasing him. It's like, that's not, you know, like, you don't need to do that. You don't have to do that. I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into. But then also the problem that people fall into is like, I think one thing that I guess I don't really ever say it, but like I think kind of as like a rule of thumb for myself at least, even though I'm thinking of one thing that I kind of didn't do this in. Well, that's not true. I do a good job on this scene, but I think that scenes that require opening scenes that have like multiple characters and like characters that know each other and have like a history or whatever are kind of tricky because you know you're already like introducing your I assume your main character in your first scene a lot of the time, and it's like multiple characters and then you have to also kind of like fill in the relationships between them, and that's like a tricky one because we don't know anything about these people, and I feel like that's often like a very hard thing to do well. I think I just see like a lot of openings that are like 3 or 4 characters, and it's like I don't know any of these people, bro, and then I also have to get like the conflict and all this, and I'm like, oh my god, just like make it simpler.
Yes. It is a delicate balance between, first of all, not info dumping, second of all, not introducing too much conflict, third of all, setting up the characters. It is a delicate dance. And, sometimes it's just hard to balance. Especially like if I imagine with like
tricky.
multiple characters, especially you kind of have to like tone it down with the names.
Yeah.
And you just have to give them some kind of
Yeah.
shallow role. Like, okay, that's the boyfriend.
Yeah, and
this is the
and like that's
mother or whatever.
like that's the thing. So I mean, like I guess the one that I was thinking of is like I have like a fantasy whatever, and this thief is like getting literally like shaken down over the side of a building and like hassled by these 2 dudes, and like it is 3 characters and there's like a lot of dialogue in that, but that's the thing is
I've
like
read
the
that one.
the yeah, well, like the guy's hassling her, like we don't really need, there's like a little bit of implication that they know each other and stuff, but like their function in the scene is like a single sentence. It's like these guys are hassling her for money, right? And so like that, if you just don't want like a complex like, well, this is I'm here doing this heist, it's with my ex, but like I'm still in love with her, but she doesn't know, like that's like too much, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if it's like just a function of like, yeah, this guy is trying to shake me down for money, like yeah, you can introduce a few people, obviously, like.
Yeah, I feel like especially
yeah.
for like character introductions in general, and especially in opening scenes, is that it's kind of like how you get to know a lot of people at once, also in real life, where the way you remember them is not necessarily by their name, is by how you contextualize them the first time you met them, right? Does that make sense? So with this guy, in your opening scene, which I have read, it would be, oh, it's that guy that gave her the shakedown, should he ever appear again.
Yes.
And that's how it's like saved in the brain, because I'm just saying this because sometimes I read manuscripts where I get this elaborate backstory about what political position this particular guy was in when he gets introduced in the first chapter. And that would be an example of like, it's too much. It's too much. Like,
Yeah.
tell me why he's relevant right now and you can build up on whoever this character is later, right?
Yeah, I think that people like really often fall into the trap of like they're afraid that without those broader explanations, like that people won't understand it, which I definitely like understand the inclination to feel that way. But that's why it's important to make the stakes of the scene clear. So it's like, yeah, like in my example, like, yeah, that guy like works for like a mob boss and like there's this whole gang and like blah blah blah, but like you don't really need, like doesn't have to be explicit in that scene. Like it can be alluded to a little bit, but like you don't need that to know that like, yeah, they're hassling this girl for like a loan she owes them or whatever. And that stuff can come in like later.
Yeah.
And just build upon what you've already established.
Yeah, and also trust your reader to pick up on cues. They'll get that this guy is working for the mob and giving her a shakedown without you even explicitly having to say it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that covers my questions. We can delve into the questions that were submitted.
Hey.
I'll just pick one here. Oh, this one is from, well, he was previously Laddie, a bit of a lad. Now he's called Emperor Baby. He asks, what are the biggest issues keeping authors from publishing you see in your work? What? So he's asking,
Dear.
What are the
Like
biggest
traditional
issues?
publishing, I guess.
Oh, you can separate the two. I'd
Uh,
be curious.
yeah, I guess it depends. I think that let's see here. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, a lot of the beta reads, are more on like the draftier side than like something that's gone through a couple revisions already. So, they usually need a pretty fair amount of work, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to get to that level of like publishing. I think that people sometimes don't focus enough on just like the basics of like, you know, I think, well,
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger, I'm sure I was more in the camp of like I'm an artiste and like an auteur, and it's like whatever like formulaic story map bullshit is like that's I'm above that, and it's like no, no, no. Most of us are not above that.
Yeah.
So like I think just like hitting some of the basics of just like you need again, it's like you need a character that goes through a character arc most of the time, of course, not like every single thing,
Mm-hmm.
but like the good, the platonic ideal of that is like your character, if you teleport them from the start of the book to the climax of the book,
Mm-hmm.
they would fail
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't gone through their character arc, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that also should not be something that's like, well, they failed because they didn't get taught how to use a gun or whatever. It should be like an internal growth, right? It shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
just be like, well, now they can fight good so they can win in the climax. But yeah, I think just also just like I guess kind of like a little bit of a lack of focus sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I mean as many of us who can be pantsers, like sometimes we just go into stuff and it's like sometimes it can be, you know, it's hard to maintain it's very hard to write a fully good book by pantsing the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely write like a pretty good book. I think it's going to need work to feel more coherent.
Mm-hmm.
I think doing more outlining and plotting is definitely like one of the best things I would say to do, even if even just like the basics of like outlining. I actually like let me pull this up. uh I like this 7 point story structure for when you are doing like a really early, like if you don't even have like hardly anything.
Mm-hmm.
It really lets you hit like the basics of the very basics,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite nice, especially because of the order that it tells you to make the order in which it tells you to do the outline.
Mm-hmm.
Like you start at the end and then you go back to the opening and you're like, what is the like absolute inverse of the end, right, for the character and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do the midpoint and then you do like the plot turn 2 at the back half of the story and then go back to plot turn 1, and like it's
Mm-hmm.
forcing you to like invert all the beats,
Mm-hmm.
which is good writing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one that I like. Save the Cat, is some people hate on it. It is pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you just kind of like take the very like bare bones and just kind of do like opening image, like catalyst, like midpoint, all is lost, and like the climax, even if
Mm-hmm.
that was like all you did, it's like that's going to be like a relatively coherent book
Mm-hmm.
if you're still hitting the character arcs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the some of those, I mean, 95+% of stuff like follows that basic structure relatively closely. Certainly for like those opening, middle, and like closing beats.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, of course, it's very hard to give somebody definitive instructions how to write a book, and nor should you because it's an art. But I would agree that, at least for my personal preference, when I'm reading and when I'm writing, I like to keep certain beats in the front of my mind, right? And that being, okay,
Mm-hmm.
inciting incident, midpoint, rising action to the climax, and then maybe the denouement, the actual ending, or after the actual ending kind of thing, right? So I would
Yeah.
agree that one of the biggest issues that I have encountered when I read like first drafts is the fact that I cannot discern a structure. And I'm not saying you should follow the 3 act or the whatever. It's like any kind of structure
Mm-hmm.
seems to be missing. And that's, I think, what the primary thing you would clock in a beta edit is just like, okay, where are you going with this? What's the point? Not meant meanly, but like, what is your vision
Yeah.
for this? You know, what are you
Yeah.
trying to set up and
And
resolve?
yeah, that's the thing too, is like also like yeah, the rising action, ideally again, like, the platonic ideal or whatever is like you generally want to raise the stakes like throughout the whole course of the book,
Yeah.
whereas the climax is like the everything is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
This is like your traditional like three act storytelling structure or whatever. But like it's again like, the basics are there for a reason, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's if you do just follow that, and you can make your story fit into that structure, like it's going to at least read relatively well,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that it's not just like completely failed on some other illegality aspect or something, for example. It's gonna feel, I think the thing that is hard for people to understand sometimes, why I don't like a book or a movie or whatever, is when they don't follow that structure. It's like sometimes it's like you can't quite explain why.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the scenes, even like in a vacuum, it's like, yeah, those were pretty entertaining and stuff, but I think that sense of progression
Mm-hmm.
is what makes people, is what like good media has, like that sense of progression from the start to the end. Like we've gone on a
Mm-hmm.
journey, like things have changed, things have escalated, throughout, and then they kind of all tie together at a big climax or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are, to be fair, there are vibey books, but even they have
Yeah.
a progression, which is like, okay, what is the vibe? you know? And you
Hmm.
can, and even that, the thing that, like, I feel like what those have is that you have set up a thought for vibey books, right? You have set up a thought and you're exploring every single facet of that thought. Whether it be, I don't know, the
Hmm.
American dream, and then that doesn't really have a climax or whatever. It's just, I'm just thinking about this one book I read,
Hmm.
which is Love Can't Feed You, which is a very vibey book about a Filipino immigrant going through the American dream and not really succeeding. And there's no climax to
Hmm.
it. It's just her throughout the years in the US. And with that is because it poses a question of like, okay, this is her family, this is where she comes from. These are the conflicts in that family, and how will it play out necessarily with the people that she gets to know? It's the same for, like, I'm sure Tofu knows this, of course they do. Tender is the Flesh. That is a supremely vibey book. There is no climax there. Well, there is a tiny one in the end, but like throughout the book, it's just exploring this concept of what if humans ate humans because meat is inedible, right? So what I'm
Goodness.
the summary of this little TED talk is that I think it's more like you need to give me something to expect. So it is the progression. You need to set something up. What are we doing here? And that's what I feel like some first drafts are lacking, where I don't get a grasp of, okay, what are we doing here? Am I just
Yeah.
it reads like, I'm you're telling me about like this little daydream you had. Almost. And I'm just
Yeah.
listening and be like, okay, cool, cool. And it's only, I mean, I've been there too. It's only interesting to the author themselves, but the reader is not really put into that, like the entertainment value of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
think that people also need to know, like, like what is your, like what are you trying to have the reader like take away from, the
exactly,
book
yeah.
as a whole, or like the scene and this and that. And it's like, I think that, you know, it's not like you need to think of like your deep like
Yeah,
themes
no.
or whatever per se. I actually personally,
Mm-hmm.
as an opinion, I find it annoying when people think of the themes first, because I feel
I will
like,
fight you.
I feel like you can smell the stink of that sometimes in writing, where it's like
Oh.
I am, just like give a TED talk if you want me to just like think about themes, just do a TED talk on it. Don't
Mm.
like trick me into reading a book. I've read some very irritating books.
There is a way to
Um,
discuss themes that is pretentious, like the way you hate, and there is a way that gets you thinking,
yeah,
which is
it's
the
it's
point.
like don't. But the thing is like if if the book is just like the hot dog around the dog pill that you're trying to feed me, like I feel like I can tell that, and I don't appreciate that. And I don't it immediately makes me not want to read that,
Mm-hmm.
because you're kind of like tricking me. You're kind of tricking me into reading your manifesto. And if I wanted to read a manifesto, I would read a manifesto. If I wanted to read a cool story about characters doing things, I would
You
read a
need to
novel.
read Tenters the Flesh
It
soon.
sounds, I think I would not enjoy that. It sounds like a book I would not enjoy.
Oh, well, I will find something you will enjoy that is in the realms of literary fiction and more theme focused
I
because
do like short books.
it can be good. I will concede that I
That
also don't
is what you keep
enjoy.
saying.
Yeah, I will concede that I don't enjoy books that are just themes and fucking no plot. As of now, I haven't read what's her name? Toni. Who wrote Beloved Tofu? Toni Morrison. Yeah,
Toni
that's a
Morris.
very well known writer of
Singer?
All Vibes No Plot. She's like award winning.
Ugh.
The Bluest Eyes hit. I only have Beloved. Anyway, I don't want to make this about a book discussion. I'm going to make this about an
Sure,
editing
sure.
discussion. Okay, so we're going to move on to the
Yes.
next question because Ezra is like shriveling because of the litfic fangirls and boys and they
Look,
thems in chat.
those litfics are, they're some of the books that were ever written.
They are books that were written, yes indeed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let me get a recent one just to spice things up, which is from Will. I want to say this in German, Willowrisk, but I think it's Willow Risk. They are asking top 5 pet peeves as an editor.
Lack of indents. This isn't Wattpad, bro. I can't even with that. I literally can't even with that. The first thing I have to do is put an indent in. That's actually insane. Um, that's definitely like that might be like the top one, honestly.
Okay.
Um, geez, let's see. I mean, they're not like pet peeves per se.
Oh
That's a pet
come
peeve.
on!
That's
Don't be
like,
a coward. Tell
Well,
me your pet peeves.
I'm just trying to think. That's definitely like that feels like a pet peeve. Other stuff that just like, I mean, there's stuff I see all the time. I mean, like dialogue. I guess it's not a pet peeve, but it's like a minor thing that is like a really easy thing that a ton of people do is they say people's names too much in dialogue.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's like such an
Full
easy,
names.
it's easy to do without realizing. Yeah, full names too. But it's like, if you're talking to one other person like in a room, like I mean you could, or if you live with somebody, like you could go like a week without ever saying their name
That's true.
because they know who you're talking to,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're like calling them from a different room or something.
Mm-hmm.
You just like don't say people's names, or maybe unless you're doing it like for emphasis or whatever, or you're irritated. But like, yeah, that's like a really easy thing to fix.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a pet peeve, but like I do, I am like a big dialogue fan, and like
Mm-hmm.
I find, you know, a lot of dialogue needs, in my opinion, like a pretty lot of work to come up to like
Mm-hmm.
sounding realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, I think people can kind of fall into like overly polished dialogue where it doesn't sound, I mean, it might like convey what you're trying to convey, but it doesn't sound like two people talking to each other
Mm-hmm.
in real life. And like if you're doing like a less, if you're not trying for that, if you're trying for a slightly more, I guess like Shakespearean or something,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, maybe like that's fine. But most people aren't trying for that, so it's just like dialogue. Yeah, that's definitely like a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Other pet peeves. I mean, single quotes for dialogue. I never see that because I don't deal with freaks from the UK, but I actually do. I do edit that stuff. But single quotes are ugly. Yeah, I don't like those. Um,
So that's 3.
oh,
Or was that 4? How many are
God,
there?
there's such so many. Uh, italicized inner monologue. Um, it's not a pet peeve, but like, don't overuse it. I feel like
Oh,
I definitely have
guilty.
done some
You
edits.
killed me.
I've definitely done some. Well, I don't know. I don't remember how much was in yours. I don't. I really don't. I honestly don't. But like, I'm sure it wasn't as much as like the one I'm thinking of, where it was just
What,
like
Frida
like
McFadden?
every. No, just a giant edit that I did. I mean, she
Okay.
was terrible too, but
Yeah,
I don't really remember her doing that. Did she have that much inner monologue?
she
I mean, I think
does.
she had some.
She
She had
does.
some. I mean, it was just so like stupid, of course, for her. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just like don't use it too much. I actually don't use it like kind of at all. I feel like now
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's easy to like fall into the trap of like
Mm-hmm.
you could just use it all the time for
Mm-hmm.
so much. I have trouble being like, well, when should I and should I not use it? So I just put it all like in the narrative voice now. I feel like.
Yes, I would say as a beginner, like a year and a half ago, I overused it quite a bit. I will admit that. I overused the italicized inner monologue because I thought like it felt direct, you know? Instead of like trying to describe the feeling, I'll just put the line in there. And it's kind of a crutch. And the more I wrote, the more I left that out. Because.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of agree. Like
Mm-hmm,
I don't think it's like it's not that it's bad.
mm-hmm,
I feel like I am bad and I would use it as a crutch and it's just like I think I can just do it without it. And it also feels weird to me like it's I don't know. I really don't know what the sweet spot is cuz like I don't like it when it's used too much, but I also kind of find it weird when it's used like it's like you go like pages and pages and then you have like one
mm-hmm.
direct italicized inner thought and it's like okay, I mean, I guess we're still doing that, but it's like, can't
It,
we just like, I don't know.
I
I
feel
really
like
honestly don't know what like a good balance is personally.
okay, super subjective, but I feel like things like italicized inner monologue, sound effects like bam, crash, like that, it gives the
Hmm.
prose an informal quality that might not be for your book, depending on what you're writing.
I know
For
about the. I mean, I'm not sure about the inner. I feel like probably italicized inner monologue is. I'm sure it shows up a lot in fanfic, but like, I think it's used in like real books too. I don't feel like it's. I don't know if I feel like that one's informal. I do enjoy a good onomatopoeia from time to time.
ew,
Uh,
shade.
sometimes you just need one. I mean, what do
No,
you? I
ew,
don't know, man.
ew. Get
No,
that
I enjoy
out
that.
of.
I enjoy that. I enjoy
The thing is,
those.
I use maybe italicized inner thing. Such a long freaking phrase, but I use it maybe for like expletives, like fuck. How will you convey that?
Sure,
Or like
sure.
shit,
Yeah,
or
that's
things like that. But
an
like if it's like an
appropriate time to use it.
extensive thought of like, but maybe they think this and that. No, no, no. No, you can do that in narrative voice.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. Also, any time that like don't use italics too, don't use any weird formatting for
Mhm.
too long,
Mhm.
because they like functionally make it more difficult for people to read. What's like a lot of your ability to read quickly is based on like the standard, non-italicized, non-bolded,
Mhm.
non-capitalized letters.
Mhm.
Uh, so if you have like a big block of like italics in the middle of a page, it just like wears people out.
This is
Um,
true. Yeah. Some people are guilty of doing that for flashbacks, and I don't know if it's a pet peeve yet, but
yeah,
I don't like it.
I would not do
Yeah.
that personally. I
Yeah.
I got in like some argument on UTT about that, I think, and they were
Really?
like, wow, wow. I was just like, don't. I was just like, yeah, I was like, I don't. If you have like a page of italics, I think that something has gone very wrong.
Dude,
I
like
don't care if it's a
okay,
flashback or not. Like, just don't just make it clear it's a flashback with like a line break or something. You don't have to make it italics.
I would argue that UTT, which is another server for those who don't know, they are a certain kind of writer. But
They
by
are yeah,
yeah,
there's some strange ones in there.
they do like more world buildy.
They're kind of haters. They're kind of haters, and
They
I'm a hater
are.
too. But like,
Oh
they're
yeah, you are.
crazy haters, bro. They're crazy
Dude,
haters.
I got flamed for saying
Uh,
that I don't like flashbacks at all. I remember this. Flamed is
yeah, maybe
a
you
big
were part of
word.
that. Maybe you were part of that. Well, I was like, I think that the argument was like, I think that I said you don't need to put it in. I think I said that you don't need to put it in past tense if
Yeah.
your rest of your book is in present tense. You don't have to put a flashback in past tense. Like you could, but you don't have to. Because like if your book,
Mm.
and I think the argument I used was that if your book is in past tense, then you don't have to put your flashback in past perfect tense.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting like roasted in the replies or something, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's not like a rule. That's not like a rule. It's not a grammar rule, man.
Here's the thing,
It's
friggin'
it's so
past
weird.
perfect sounds so, it reads so bad. I hate past
I
perfect.
know. Yeah, it's
Yep.
not. It's something that really should be used sparingly. I'm
Yeah.
also guilty of that a little bit. In one of my books, I got like roasted by some lady
Mhm.
friend of mine about that.
You
But she is the worst. So there you go.
love you, Fern.
No, that wasn't Fern.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
don't use lady friend in that context. It's used in a different context.
Oh my goodness. I see. I see. Oh, okay. Well, so regarding flashbacks, that I'm not a fan of the clear delineation of it. Like, can you not work it into exposition or narration? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would agree with that.
We have another question. Let's go with CJ's. She is not present currently, but I have a couple of questions for your first page. Number 1, what are some things that makes you stop reading? Number 2, what are you looking for after a first page that makes you want to read more? I guess this is ties into opening scenes, but more specifically the
Yeah,
first page.
I mean, like, I guess I never. I never really stopped reading a first page because, like,
Mhm.
I'm a boomer, so I didn't get brain rotted like all the screenagers out there. By the way, I heard that term for the first time the other
I
day, and I'm a
love
big
that.
fan.
I love that
Yeah, it's
term.
great, right? It's
Yeah.
amazing. I can't believe I hadn't heard it, but I guess that just proves how a boomer I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, like kind of like what we were saying before, like you just don't want to like throw too much stuff at people.
Mhm.
Like it needs to just be. I think the most important thing for me is it's just like I need to be able to parse what is going on,
Mhm.
and then once I can like parse what is going on, then it's like okay, am I interested in it?
Mhm.
And that's kind of like I think that kind of comes back to like there needs to be uh you know pretty quickly we need to establish like a goal for the character, and like the stakes of the scene and
Mhm.
stuff like that. um
Maybe I can
yeah, like
be.
that's most of it.
Yeah, well, for me, really, what stops me reading from the first page on is if I see any form of world building. I'm gone. Bye. Bye.
I mean, there shouldn't be like okay, so like that the world building thing is like, the world building that should or that is like appropriate to be in like a first page would be the kind of thing where, you know, it's you need to understand through context what it is, even
Mm-hmm.
if you're not understanding like exactly what it is. So it's like, if I don't know, like so let's say that your Jason Bourne scene or whatever, and it's like, then
Mm-hmm.
the guy, taps a button and his coat, the active camouflage activates or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? And then you can't see him. It's like, okay, I don't need to like understand the technological how his coat is making him invisible. I understand that now he's invisible,
Mm-hmm.
and I also understand that like, well, it sounds like we're in some kind of cyberpunk future world or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like that's the kind of world building that I feel like you like because again like you should be able to tell from the first scene,
Mm-hmm.
like, am I in a contemporary, terrible, the housemaid world, or am I in a fantasy world or like a sci-fi world?
Yeah.
Because that is like pretty important. You probably should get an idea of that. So I have also read books where it's kind of jarring, where you're like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like vague enough that you're not really sure like what the tech level is, and then
Mm-hmm.
when somebody pulls out like an iPad, you're like, what the fuck? I thought I was in like the
Future.
the 1500s or something, or like yeah, or further in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so like yeah, you don't want. I mean, you never want to do like info dumps. Sometimes you need to do info dumps, actually, sometimes, but
I
you
learned
don't want to do
something.
them in the first page at all, or probably the first chapter.
I learned something about this. Just like little tangent that is related about like world building versus narration. because what distinctly, for me at least, what world building is like I'm reading a history book now. Now I have to like, I feel like I need to pay attention about all the details when it's just intended to
Uh-huh.
be vibe setting. And that is where exposition
Yeah.
becomes narration, is that if it's setting a vibe and it's not like necessarily information you need to hold on to, you know? So
Yeah.
if let's say this guy is explaining the inner workings of his freaking invisibility cloak, it's meant to also set the vibe that he's very smart, you know? And
Yeah.
it feels world
Well,
buildy if it's like completely separate from the story, some freaking
yeah.
information.
It's like if you are going to do, yeah, like if you were going, so I would say that generally speaking, as most of these things are, it's like if you're going to have a guy explain the inner workings of his invisibility code, that would have to be like directly related to the actual like unfolding of the story. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's like, oh well, it doesn't work in the rain, and now it's raining. Like that would be like an example of when that would be appropriate, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but like, yeah, you don't, especially because like the meme or whatever is like bad sci-fi or fantasy writing is like if you were writing a contemporary book
Mm-hmm.
and then going around and like explaining the technology of everything and be like, I stepped outside and a car rolled by. Well, a car uses an internal combustion engine that works on multiple pistons to burn gasoline. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like how a lot of people do sci-fi. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, that's like bad. Like, don't do that. You should let people pick it up through. Again, it's like if I see a flying car,
Mm-hmm.
does it matter to me that I know like the fucking mechanics of how that works?
Mm-hmm.
Unless your story is about like a car mechanic and that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I can just be like, yeah, there's a flying car, and that's great.
Yeah.
That's how people get around.
Yeah, this is like a problem that is, as pro crazed fan says, this is very isolated in sci-fi fantasy with separate words, but not as isolated as you may think. Even in contemporary works, some authors will completely go off course, detailing some part about the family history or something that really doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And I find that I can roll even with that if it's setting up the character, the perspective character. It's really what I would consider what would make me stop reading on first page is if I see the semblance of like, you are just world building at this point. It's not propelling,
Yeah.
not to say there isn't time for this later on, obviously, but like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I have major white room syndrome, and you're choosing to fill this white room with information that I do not need to know now. That's it.
Yeah. I totally agree. Willarisk was asking,
Yeah.
what do you think is a balance for physical character descriptions when they're introduced? I mean, I do like describing people because I'm very like visual, so I
Oh,
usually see the
sinner.
characters. So, I mean, but I would say that like generally speaking, it's like don't like over describe. I mean, you can get a lot of mileage just from like a very couple of descriptions. Also, uh, just do it like one time. Generally, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
if the so when you're in first person or like limited third person, ostensibly everything that you're writing in the narrative is there should kind of be like a internal motivation for why the character is focusing on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I would say that, an appropriate time to repeat a bit of character description, for example, is if it's like, if you have your character like meet the love interest and you have like a relatively lavish description of them, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then like don't ever say again, like what color their hair is or what color their eyes are, unless it's like, you know, then like a moment later where it's like they're standing on a moonlit bridge and like he's looking into her eyes or whatever. That would be like an appropriate time to then, describe it again. Because
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, like, another general rule of thumb is like never give the reader information they already have. So like if you've said it,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a character description or whatever, like just if they forget it and want to look it back up, that's on them.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it again. Again, the exception being like, if you put in a nice subtle like detail that is important later, like 10 chapters down the line, of
Mm-hmm.
course you can kind of prime the memory pump for that a little bit by
Mm-hmm.
by redescribing it. But generally speaking, yeah, just like don't don't describe the same thing more than once.
Here's
Uh,
my completely unprofessional opinion, the way I like to write these
mm-hmm,
type of things,
mm-hmm.
is that I don't describe them at all. I
Yeah,
let
that's because you're a sicko, bro.
no, I let the vibe speak for it, you know? Sure, I will describe their hair color or their rough height, but I don't get so lost in the details of this because no matter how well you describe a character, if I decide, no, he's not blonde, he has dark hair, I being the reader, then that's what he's gonna have. Done. You know?
No, actually, I actually have an EULA for my books that say you cannot do that. You
What
have
is
to
an
sign it before you read
EULA?
them. An end user license
Oh
agreement.
my freaking
Just like
god. No,
when you
it
download
depends
software,
on
it says I can
genre.
sue you and take it to arbitration
Oh
if you
my
change the character hair
goodness.
color.
Oh my goodness. Stop exerting authorial control over me, the reader. Oh my god. No, but it's of course it's dependent on the on the story itself, on the genre, on the tone. But there are people, if you can, in my opinion, I would not describe my characters because what does it matter?
That's
You just describe the vibe.
because it's just about it's not that a specific thing about how they look matters. It's just about painting a full scene. So like it's the same reason that you'd be like, well, why would I, you know, that's like something that I think is an easy trap to fall into when people are like, sometimes people do be describing too much stuff in detail. It's like, well, yeah, the sofa was on the left and the armchair was on the right. It's like, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
like way too much. But you can't just and also like, I think that people can fall into the trap of like, well, none, because the other rule of thumb is like, yeah, if it's not plot relevant, it's like, why is it in the book, right? But like, you can't cut out all of the unplot relevant stuff because like no
No.
description,
Yeah.
99% of description is not like plot relevant. So like, I mean, for me, it's just like you just need to give people like enough to visualize the scene, unless you're one of those freaks who can't visualize, and then it's like, I don't know, listen to an audio drama.
Wait,
Um,
wait, wait, wait,
but
wait.
like,
So
can you
what?
picture an apple in your head?
Well, because like Villorisk is looking for tips about this, right? So one thing would be like not to over describe, like just describe just enough. My approach in general is I tend to describe specifically in character introductions. Please guys, the stuff I've uploaded here by the way are old works. I'm talking about like how I would write it now. But I usually try to describe the first impression and then I will like pad it with how they actually look, you know?
Yeah.
That
I don't
that
think
is my
the
approach.
yeah. Willerisk was saying struggle with same pronoun seems to get tired of names, and use description too much as an alternative. So are you saying you do like instead of like repeating the name, you'd be like, oh, the man said this or whatever?
No,
Is that what
like
you're
for
saying?
example, I think they mean like the blonde said this.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I don't know about that personally. I feel like that is, I feel like when you're talking about, so like, let's say that you're, dialogue or whatever, like you're going back and forth between two characters and all this other stuff. It's like names are like, I personally think it's more jarring to swap out the names. Like names are one of those things that's kind of like he said speech tag. Like
Mm-hmm.
you've got like your standard deviation where it's got like the dummy on one side, or no, like the genius on one side and then the genius on the other side, and then
Mm-hmm.
in the middle is like the dummy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen that meme.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that the two far sides of that is like nobody cares how often you say said or the names, and then in the middle is like crying about how many times you say those speech tags, because 99% of readers like don't even notice that stuff,
No,
like ever.
that's
I don't
true.
think like you could say like you could say said for like every speech tag almost, and most people will not even notice that.
Depends.
It's certainly, I mean, I mean, I'm being a little, I'm generalizing a little bit, but like I would certainly say that I maybe it's anecdotal, but like it's better to have quote unquote too many of those,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe have a couple of your readers be like, okay, I didn't need that, than to have too few and have a bunch of people be confused about who's talking or who's doing something. The you want your you don't ever want readers to like be confused by the basics of what is happening in a scene.
Yeah.
So like I would always err on the side of just like don't, you know, don't get too fancy. Just be like, tell me who is doing what and who is saying what.
Mm-hmm.
And like, don't make it like, you don't have to dumb it down, but just make it simple and clear. And I think that's fine. And you can always maybe come back and like polish out a little bit of the excessive stuff later. But like, I would say to like just focus on, again, like the basics of understanding what is happening in the scene. People should have.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's more if it's pronouns. That's a third person problem most of the time. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just like, and the thing is, like, when people are like going back and forth and like speech tags and all this other stuff, it's just like you just want all you have to do really when you're dealing with like, oh, I have too many speech tags or this and that or like too many of the same sex pronoun or whatever. It's just like, I mean, I would just mix it up with like action tags and stuff. So like that's another thing that like maybe is like a hot take or whatever, but it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because like why do I care if someone like scratch their head or whatever? And it's like, yeah, it's not so much that like them scratching their head is important for the narrative of the book,
Mm-hmm.
but like it allows you to attribute a dialogue or an action without having to use the same back and forth like he said, she said over and over again.
Yeah. Hot
You just don't
take
want things.
about that.
Hot take.
Yeah, is
Mm-hmm.
that I think I was guilty of that. I used to like do action tags. Um, in the first manuscript that you've read, by the way, there's a hella action tags, and some of the early like Somnophile, the first draft that I also pubbed in here, also has a lot of action tags, and I got clocked like intermittently, not all the time, that I'm like describing minute expressions and minute movements, and I did it for the same reason as you stated, is just so that it's clear who's talking, and I will say that I don't like it anymore. It kind of detracts more than it helps. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it depends on, I mean, it just depends on like the, it just depends on like the scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, what you want is, what you want is like, I think that the best way to look at like action tags and speech tags is just to mix up what you're doing so
Mm-hmm.
that you're not using one or the other like all the time. Like that's just how I use them at least. Um, I don't really have like a I guess like a good like
Mm-hmm.
quantifiable method for that. It's
Mm-hmm.
just don't use one or the other exclusively. And if you feel like you're using too many speech tags, like back and forth, then like, yeah, throw an action tag in there.
Yeah.
Also, I guess another pet peeve of mine is when people have like an action
Mm-hmm.
tag, but then like drop the dialogue down for the same character. It's like, no, girl, just
Mm-hmm.
put it on the same line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Like
if
that's
you're a
like the whole point
very,
of it.
very skilled writer, I guess your dialogue would speak for itself. You'd know which character is talking,
That's
and
okay. That's like
and it
I
would
feel like
have the
that's bad
emotion in there.
advice.
No, but
I
that's
feel
like
like that's again, it's like the
that's
same. It's like that same standard deviation scale. Like that's bad advice for like 99% of people. I feel like
no. What I'm
because dialogue is
saying is that that's the platonic ideal, to use your term, of
yes,
like a dialogue.
yes. I guess, yeah, I guess. But also like people should just know who's talking.
That's true. I mean, that is the primary reason that most of my scenes are just two people. Cause
Yeah, it gets a lot. It gets complex when there's more people for
yeah,
sure.
that then it gets
Although
really.
sometimes it makes it easier because then you just yeah. I mean, like I don't. I have no problem. I personally think. I guess I don't really have. I don't know if other people in books do this, but I think doing like the blonde thing that we were talking about before, like the
Mm-hmm.
the man that the tall man said, like that I feel like that feels more awkward to me than even seeing someone's name 30 times in a scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I have to see their name 30 times in a scene and there's no other way to do it, it's like, I don't know, I'll just read it and be like, I'm glad I know who was talking or acting.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
especially because the doing it that other way, like it always, implicitly it's going to be kind of repeated description. And it's
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I know he's a tall man. Why am
Mm-hmm.
I hearing about it again in the middle of this dialogue?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
maybe it's a
I'm gonna
thing people
have
do.
to
Maybe.
write extensive scenes to like have an input because I like in my head I'm thinking, it's kind of good to be aware of these things because then you have to restructure your scene in a way that like doesn't lend itself to excessive action tags or restructure your dialogue in such a way. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But then again, if you have to get this plot point established and there's no other way than this, for example, this character revealing this kind of information and it has to be
Hmm.
built up or whatever, this is like really in the weeds of things. But I would say
Hmm.
still I would maintain that the platonic ideal is that you do not even need to specify that much who's talking. It would just be clear by the scene
You're one of those
itself.
people. I
Yes.
mean, I I think that applies to me more for like the dialogue itself
Mm-hmm.
in the by which I mean that is more related to how the dialogue is written.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that is a good like let's say that you could write dialogue where every single line of dialogue it was immediately clear to someone who
Mm-hmm.
is speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would still want to put in speech tags and action tags. I think that would read really bad personally if you had none of those because speech tags are useful to see how someone is saying something
Mm-hmm.
and action tags make it feel like you're not just two like headless people in a white room talking. Um,
Yeah, there's
there's some like
probably.
there's a time and a place for like back to back dialogue with no tags,
Mm-hmm.
but like I think that again like the variety is the spice of life, right?
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
also
I'm
like
probably
if it's
like Ezra. I've probably read books where they did exactly what I said they shouldn't be doing, and I didn't even notice it because it worked. You know,
yeah
that's what I mean with it. Be if you can get away with it, why the fuck not? It's when you do it in this
yeah
awkward way where it's like the blonde and then full names to signify who's talking.
yeah
Yeah, it's like you
yeah
kind of want it to be invisible somehow. Still,
yeah. I mean,
um,
ideally, it is kind of invisible.
yeah. I'm just gonna like go on to the next question so that we can also hi Ratchet. Um from Robert K. Hardesty, they're asking, how often do you
Full
find
name.
authors refuse to make changes which you believe would massively improve the storytelling of their work? And how often do they later change their minds and agree with notes they at first rejected?
Uh, I don't know how often that happens because a lot of the time, like I'll do a beta read or whatever, and it'll be like, oh, like people are generally speaking, out of all the ones I've done, I've only had a couple people be like, your feedback is terrible and I hate you. Really only like under sub five people, I think, total for
Oh
all of
my
them.
god.
Um, and but like I don't always get people like coming back, so like I don't really know what they do with my
Mm-hmm.
uh I have some people, come back and like, oh, like I did a beta read and I changed this draft and like now can I do an edit or whatever. But like a lot of the beta reads I do, I just like never hear from again.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know. Most people, generally speaking, like, you know, at least tell me that they appreciate my feedback and like they think that it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if maybe they're secretly like this guy's an idiot and I'm never gonna change this stuff. I mean, I assume they're telling the truth. Like there's no like incentive for them to lie to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, some people. I mean, it's always like you always want to hear that when someone is reading your even if it's a rough draft, like you want to hear this like. Of course, this is perfect. Like, why would you even like why publish this now, right? But like, obviously, that's not how it is. I mean, I feel, I feel the same. Like, sadness in my soul when someone is like, oh, you should like restructure a lot of this, and like it's not working or whatever. But I mean, that's
Mhm.
just, that's just like part of the process. You just kind of have to iterate on it. Um,
Plus,
and some, I mean, yeah, go on.
plus, I think like the fact that they approach you and pay you already like
Hmm.
indicates that they're ready to have stuff picked apart.
Yeah,
It would
yeah,
be kind of counterproductive if they paid you and being like, "Why are you criticizing me when
hmm,
that is literally what you're there for to like pull apart and see what
yeah,
could work better?" So that just doesn't make
yeah. And it's
sense to
all,
me.
I mean, even like the roughest stuff that I've read, like it's
Mm-hmm.
the feedback is given in a way that's meant to be like, maybe this is not working now, but it's like, I think that if you did this and this, is like, this could be a lot better. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I feel like a lot of the times too, like, there is a lot of it that comes down to like the execution. It's like
Mm-hmm.
most of the stuff that I read, I'm like, yeah, these are like fun ideas and everything. And it's just a lot of it is in the execution and just having
Mm-hmm.
a clear idea of like what is it that like what is the journey you want the reader to go on through this,
Mm-hmm.
and like having a clear concept of that, and making that coherent throughout the course of the book.
Oh, I'm gonna be a little bit spicy because this
Ooh.
is the thing outside of the professional realm that if I give people a crit that I worked an hour or two on, and the responses essentially they fight me. Like, no, you misunderstood it. That kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Um, so my question is, how, have you ever received a manuscript that you objectively do not like, and how do you give feedback to that?
I mean, i've read I've read a good few things that I was not a giant fan of. It's just like it's again, it's like I think that you know I think that the issue people have is if they do come into it like, I'm hiring, you don't want to like, you have to crush the urge to be like, I know I'm getting feedback from this person, but like, I already know they're going to love every part of it, right? Like, you kind of have
Mm-hmm.
to like crush that urge
Mm-hmm.
within yourself
Mm-hmm.
and be like, especially because it's so easy when, like you as the writer, you have so much more context for everything in your book than any reader is ever going to have,
Mm-hmm.
because like you created it, out of whole cloth, and you understand, the subtle character motivations that may or may not be coming through on the page. So like
Mm-hmm.
your perceived experience is not going to be like a reader coming in with no context. So I think that's where like some of the mismatch can come sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's just, it can be hard sometimes, but it's like you just, again, everything that I'm saying is meant to be constructive and be like, like I don't think, if someone wants to argue like, well, I don't want to have character arcs in this, it's like, okay, well, hey man, like that's, you can do whatever you want. Like, and also like, I don't always say it in every report, but it's like, the feedback that I give is, generally speaking, it is targeted towards the idea of like, maybe you want to traditionally publish this, and we're talking about like standard-ish story
Mm-hmm.
structures,
Mm-hmm.
not like super experimental stuff and this and that. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I generally, it's like, yeah, I'm going to talk about character arcs, and it's like, okay, if I'm going into a book that doesn't really have one at all,
Mm-hmm.
you know, absolutely, like throw out that feedback if you don't want that feedback. But
Mm-hmm.
I it's hard sometimes, but it's all just like, it's coming from a place of trying to give actionable feedback to make stuff be better. And most people, I mean, like I said, I've had a couple people be like, I hate you and you're the worst, but that's pretty few and far between. But
Yeah.
also, I do think also like it probably, I think people probably, certainly from your experience, it sounds like sometimes like, I think that people, if they're going to the trouble of paying money,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to be a little more likely to be like, to take what they're being given.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's like, if I want my buddy to read this, I'm like hoping that he's going to be like, this shit is the next Odyssey. Like, you should make this to a Christopher Nolan movie, like,
Well, I
but
I guess the core of the question is, since you are somewhat bound professionally to interact with people like this, and I am not. So if they say you just don't understand my work, I'm just like, okay, maybe I don't. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that freedom because they're paying you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is also beneficial for like people on the server to understand like how, for first of all, to take a crit and how to give a crit. So if somebody has this particular reaction, I guess, how do you deal with it in those 5 times? What did you do?
I mean, I just was like, I mean, I guess I was just like, it's like if you expected something different, from this feedback, or if you need me to explain or elaborate on something that I said, it's like I'm happy to,
Mm-hmm.
do that till you're satisfied, because I
Mm-hmm.
gotta, grub these people for their good reviews, of course. But like, I don't know, like some people just. I mean, some people I don't think are ready to hear negative feedback in general, and that nothing that I say is going to make them
Mm-hmm.
suddenly. Some people just are like, they go into it being like, I know that I'm the best to ever do it, and they're not ready for feedback that has any shred of a different opinion, a different opinion of that. So
Yeah.
I just wouldn't worry about it too much. It's like, I don't know, some people just all you can do is just give the feedback that, I mean, you're not like making up these things to
Mm-hmm.
hurt them about their book. It's like, this is the subjective reader experience that you
Yeah.
had, and you're just sharing it with them.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, since you're German, you sound mean about everything you say,
Oh
so
my
like
god.
that's on you, but that's not a problem everyone has.
That is not a problem, number one. And number two, I agree that I do value directness more than I do padding about things. And that might not be the right context to do that in feedback sometimes. So you would say, I guess the takeaway here is that to receive a crit, you have to kind of be open to be criticized. Number one.
Yeah.
And number two, if you, the critter, suddenly get a reaction of like, you don't get it, I mean, the best you can do is just explain why you thought that, you know?
Pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
can.
it's like, again, I mean, it's obviously all subjective. Like some
Mm-hmm.
people, I mean, like I think The Housemaid is dog shit, and millions of people think that it's really good. So
Mm-hmm.
like that's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
I would have I mean, I did actually write a beta report for that for a different project that I was doing,
I
but I was
know.
like, boy, this is a tough one. This is a
Yeah.
tough one because it's
Yeah.
really bad. It's a really bad book. I
Yeah.
would argue objectively bad, but clearly, that's my subjective opinion. So what do I know?
But
She's,
that's.
her pool's heated, man.
Oh.
Mine's not. I don't have a pool, so
Not yet. But my god, here's
that's
the
right.
thing. This is also writerly related. Is that I have a huge problem with people thinking that things are like objective. It's an objective opinion, Ezra. Because there is no such thing as objectivity when you're reading a book. Apart from grammar, that can be objectively wrong, obviously. That, like, putting that aside. But like the reason why The Housemaid works, it's because it's a brain dead book. That's the market that it's trying to
Brain rot.
address.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's brain rot. It's brain rot.
And so it
I
has a
mean,
place. And it's not
I
objectively
mean, like there's
bad
like
in that context.
it's like good brain rot. There's bad brain rot. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I don't care for that book. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you though.
Yeah. Oh, look. Oh, this is juicy. Vilolisk. Well, actually, I was going for X. I see you didn't pick up on that. How do you suggest I show X more clearly?
Yeah, that is what authors should probably be saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Fair. Yeah.
and like I said too, like it's I mean, it kind of like, I don't know, it kind of like ping pongs between like, don't treat your readers too dumb, but also like
Mm-hmm.
you should expect your readers to be dumb. So like, I guess you kind of want to land right in the middle of that. Because
Yeah.
again, like your, I generally speaking, I would lean on like, expect your readers to be dumb. And then if you get
How
enough
dare you?
people be like, this is too like obvious, then I would tone it back.
That's
So I think that
so
most,
fascinating. I do the opposite. I assume my readers are
I think
intelligent, and
that,
if I lose them, that's when I add the padding.
no,
Yes.
no, no.
Oh my
I
god.
think that anecdotally, I think that most authors, uh, when it comes to things that, can be like complex or whatever, I think that most of the time they make it too subtle. Actually, I don't know. It's hard
Yeah,
to say. It's
I'm
like
guilty.
50-50.
I'm
It's
guilty
like,
of
it
that though.
depends on what it is. It depends on what it is. It depends on what it is. If you're talking about like, I think character motivations and stuff like that, I think that sometimes people can
Mm-hmm.
make a little too like subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so when it comes to like that, I would be like maybe like a little more explicit. But yeah, it's that's something that I think you just need like multiple people's feedback on to
Mm-hmm.
be like, is this, if multiple people are telling you that they're like confused by like character motivations or like the basics of stuff, then it's like, and you're like, but it's so obvious. It's like, yeah, it's obvious to you, but clearly it's like not obvious in the text of the book because again, they don't
Yeah.
have that extra like, you know,
Yeah,
context that
but
you have.
there are some feedback. We're getting into a tangent, but I feel like I need to say this. There's some feedback that makes me think, did you even try? Did you even try to think what I was
Yeah, but
going?
your books are confused. Your books are
Yeah,
complex.
you were about to say confusing. Don't you make euphemisms with
No,
me, mister?
no, I didn't think Somnify was that confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I feel like you kind of like explained some of the basics of it too before I read it, but
Yeah.
they're more they're a little more trying on the reader than the housemaids out there, but I don't think they're like super confusing. But
Yeah.
also like there's a really wide distance between like overly subtle and like completely like
Mhm.
beating the reader over the face with it. So like
Mhm.
sometimes, you know, if you are, and again, the feedback is framed in that like I assume you want, generally speaking, the broadest audience that might like this book to be able to understand this book.
Mhm.
So like that's where that feedback about something being too subtle or not too subtle might come from. Sometimes people do make stuff like way too obvious. I mean, the housemaid was like literally like slapped, like beating my
No,
face
you don't
with
have to
it
think
like the
at
whole
all reading
time.
a McFadden book. You
It's
just
terrible.
let the prose wash over you. You don't have to
Hmm.
do a single thing. You don't have to lift a single brain cell to understand
I
what's going
had
on.
to. I lifted so many brain cells trying to understand that woman, alleged woman, because I think she might use ghostwriters.
Okay,
Honestly,
fair. Ugh, God.
I'm just saying. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, there's this and there's that. It's about balance, I guess. I mean, you veer more into the like explaining things more explicitly because I think that's more beneficial for like, well, the stuff you write, which is fantasy, cyberpunk, that stuff.
Yeah, my slop. You can just say it. Just say it hatefully.
I
That
did
slop
not say,
fantasy, right?
my guy. I read fantasy now. Okay, you converted me somewhat. I used to be such a opposition,
Wow.
right? Okay,
Wow. We're just
what?
gonna get Fern
Wow.
on sci-fi now.
Oh my god, I think that's impossible. She hates world building.
It is. It's so weird.
It is because she is a
She's a
fantasy
hater.
writer.
Yeah,
but
she's such a hater, bro.
yes. What is this? That is indeed me. That is indeed me. Um was what was I gonna say about that? Yeah, it's about the balance of like the thing that makes scenes in general fun, right? Regardless if you like explain or not explain, is that you allow the readers to come to their own conclusions. I think the moment that
Yeah.
it like flips over into like, yeah, I got it, that's the moment that you need to draw back, regardless from which end of the extreme
Yeah.
you're coming from here.
That's actually one thing. Yeah, that's like one thing I see a lot where it's like you I mean it's something that like LLMs do really a ton.
Yes.
But also they probably have learned it from like bad writers or amateur writers.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, you don't want to, if you find yourself like summarizing a scene or at the end of a scene, or you don't want to interpret like you've already like established a good like scene that has like subtext.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to then like interpret that for the reader in like a narrative like info dump.
Yeah.
That's like a really good thing to just like tear out of your writing, I feel like,
This is
because
why.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's bad.
No, yeah, that's why I was saying that in the Platonic ideal of like dialogue is that you don't need to provide the context because that is exactly what you're working with in that moment. It's like readers can infer what's going on. And I guess
Yeah.
that can also be extrapolated into any aspect of writing. Like, let readers, for me, part of the huge fun part about reading is feeling like I'm a little fly on the wall, witnessing this invented people going through shit. You know, and I don't have this freaking narrative voice in the back of my head going like, "Did you understand that?" You know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
that's like a much over explanation.
yeah, so you, I guess the end goal for like any storytelling is to make the reader feel like they're part of it, they're witnessing things. You know, it's like more of a people
Yeah, I mean, you
watching
want it.
perspective. For me, at
Yeah, I
least.
mean, you want it to be. Yeah, I mean, you want it to feel. I mean, you want people to feel immersed in it. I think
Yes.
ultimately,
Right. I
and like
think.
that's
Yeah.
also like, yeah,
Yeah. I do
yeah.
have another question that is more on the editing things or being an
Hmm.
editor.
Hmm.
It's from Arlen or Charlene now because everybody wants to be called Charlie in the server. Um, what are your tips slash questions to ask to find an editor that is best fit for you? I don't mean green or red flags or scams. I just mean how do you tell when an editor is a good fit for your writing style and vision genre for your development?
Uh, Easy answer. I would just have them do like a sample edit, basically. If you're talking about line editing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't need you shouldn't need. I mean, the question should be about line editing because again, like a proofreader or copy editor
Mm-hmm.
should you shouldn't really need a sample from that
Mm-hmm.
because it should just be the same thing. Anyone should be the same, assuming they're competent. But
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, developmental editing is something you could get a sample for, like a short sample of a chapter or something. And line editing the same thing. But I mean, I always tell people that like, yeah, I mean, I'll edit a couple pages for free or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
um, to see what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, that's really like the only way to do it because it's like you either like you either like their changes or you don't,
Mm-hmm.
and you I don't know, verbalizing, it's not really possible to like verbalize like, well, how do I edit stuff? It's like, I don't know, I just look at the sentence and make it better, basically at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day.
No, but
Better in my opinion.
that's the thing. I'm gonna like blow smoke up your bum here. But like
Nice.
that's the thing about like because my first project Traces of Debar went through a lot of hands even before I arrived in UTT where I got to know Ezra.
Hmm.
And I could tell also by the way, and some of them were professional editors advertising their service. And with some editors, I could tell that, oof, you are picking this apart in a way that I feel like is not aligned with what I'm going for even back then. And when I submitted it to you, I think you got it. You got it pretty spot on about like, okay, you could lessen, dude, it's been 2 years. Forgive me if I don't remember the exact points. I do have them in my
Jesus.
notes somewhere. But I do remember thinking like I can work with this guy. Like I can discuss like little minute details of what, and I know that you're not by default like you don't read stuff like the stuff I've written at that point, you know. But the thing is,
Yeah.
I actually value that more than I do somebody who just reads dark litfic or whatever Traces of the Bar is, because it's. Wait, where was I going? Like, I value that you do not read the same books as I do and still provide me with this context because there is a certain brain rot. No, you can't call it that. A certain genre brain rot, I guess, that happens if you keep on reading the same genre books that then
Yeah, I can see
standardizes
that.
what you're doing. So, paradoxically, I would recommend finding an editor who may not read what you're writing on a regular basis, but still has the input.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Am I making sense? I don't
Hmm.
know.
I mean, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I mean, yeah, I guess like sometimes people are like on Upwork or like, oh, like I want someone who's like edited sci-fi and stuff. Like, I guess I don't know. I mean, like my general opinion is that like I feel like I can line edit pretty much anything.
I mean,
I
yeah.
guess I don't know if I honestly don't know if like line editors in general like say that they specialize in certain genres.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do any like I could line edit a nonfiction too, but like I don't do any developmental stuff for nonfiction. It's the only thing I don't really do.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think generally speaking, like I don't know. I mean, for it depends on what you're trying to get. I mean, if it's for line editing, I think you can just get anybody who seems like they can do a good sample.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Developmental editing, I mean, it depends on how like far from your standard, I guess, like story structure you're straying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes I think maybe like if someone has something that's really like completely out there as far as that goes, like maybe it's better to get someone who's a little more familiar with like the vibes based stuff
Mm-hmm.
potentially. Because like I said, I mean, I don't want to give people feedback that's like, hey, put a character arc in here, and it's like, well, we don't really do that in this genre. You know what I mean? but like all I kind of do is just give my best, to
Yeah,
whatever
I'm
they're doing.
I'm guessing I'm very I didn't work with an editor beginning to finish yet because I don't have a finished product to be fair.
Yeah, girl, I know.
Uh, Shut up. But um it's more when you're out there in the big wide world on Upwork or Fiverr, wherever, and you're looking for the right editor. Um I guess that's very difficult if you yourself don't know what to look for. So what they're asking is what should you once you get the free sample, what should you pay attention to? And my
I mean, if it's
previous
for like, yeah, yeah. I mean, if it's for like line editing, it's just like, do you
no,
think that the changes? What's that?
no, I don't think they mean line editing per se. I think they actually mean like the developmental.
Developmental editing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like, do you agree that the suggested changes would make your narrative better?
Yeah.
Uh, like, do you see the logic in their reasoning and stuff? I mean, developmental editing is also one of those things where it's like, I mean, it is kind of subjective. It's like if there's not like a rubric you can just look at and be like, well, this should change here. It's like
Mhm.
obviously there's all the suggestions and stuff. You can't just quantify it down to science. So like if you think that what they're saying is like, oh yeah, actually that actually kind of does make sense. I feel like that would make sense if that
Mhm.
character did this or blah blah blah. Then yeah, I mean I think that's kind of all you can go on.
You
But
know
I
what?
definitely think that.
Well put. That is
Mhm.
exactly like feel free to disregard my previous like look for somebody who's not really in your genre. It's exactly that. It's like if they give the feedback and you're like, "Oh my god, yeah, it's so true." Instead of the like,
Yeah,
weird, why would you focus on that? Why would
yeah,
you build on this? It's like a certain consensus with the vision and the editing, which I'm just thinking about how you don't even have that choice when you're going TradPub. This is just so exclusively self-pubbing, unless you're getting your manuscript developmentally edited before you query. But I'm supposing that this person is not gonna TradPub since they're asking this question. So yeah, I would say like the congruence is the biggest factor to go by. Send a sample from whatever scene that you feel like would give the most productive feedback, and check
yeah.
if the vibes are right, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for developmental stuff, you'd probably have to do like your first chapter because they won't have context for anything
Mhm.
later. But yeah,
Mhm.
you could
Mhm.
do anything, I guess, for line editing.
Mhm. But the thing is, I don't know if it's tangential, but I don't know with other people. For me, the first chapters are usually the one that gets like are already very very polished because I do send out first chapters to the
Yeah,
masses.
I mean, true. Yeah, true.
Yeah, so it's gonna be. It sounds like vetting for a
I
therapist.
mean,
That's so true. Yeah.
you could always do a couple, I suppose. But yeah,
Yeah. Or you could do like an important scene that you feel like doesn't need any context, I guess. I don't frigging know. You decide. It's just like I feel like you first chapter would not be my first bet for like developmental editor samples. It would be something like the inciting incident or something that would like so you're still
yeah. I mean,
close enough to the
I guess if
beginning.
they have, yeah, I guess they just need the context for it. I suppose. I guess you could give them like a synopsis too,
Yeah,
if
or
you had that.
yeah. Well, maybe send the first chapter. I'm actually quite confused about this. This is such a good question. Like, what do I look out for like a good editor? There has to be some rapport, which I think
Yeah.
none of us
I mean,
have.
yeah, I mean, you also don't want it to be like someone who's bending your story into a shape that you're uninterested in
Yeah,
making it.
yeah.
Of course.
Okay. Um, I think we have time for at least one or two more questions. I do have to head
Sure.
out by the end of the hour.
Yeah, I gotta eat some food too.
Yeah, same. But
Nice.
from oh my God, Santhurion. What is the likelihood of a new unpublished writer with 10 plus unique works in progress and a universe of interconnected novels being signed to a book deal with a traditional publisher in this modern era?
Uh, generally speaking, low.
Yeah.
because it's like low for
Sorry.
everybody, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's just a hard thing to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not like the most giant expert on what the trad publishing marketplace is right now. I don't think Fern probably knows better than me.
Mhm.
But as far as I understand it, uh, you probably need something that's like, you know, a hot uh, genre
Mhm.
is good.
Mhm.
Like your romanticises, for example, right
Mhm.
now is a pretty popular genre.
Mhm.
Like these people are all just trying to make money, so like your niche, like complex whatever, is just not going to have a as much of a chance as getting picked up as some, book talk slop.
Mhm.
Um, it's just not. So, but at the end of the day, like, they're still publishing everything in every genre. So like you just need to, pitch a good query for a book. I think also like uh generally I don't think they kind of frown upon unfinished series as well. So like
Mhm.
I think probably the if you want to do a series, I think probably the best thing I think what people do is they're like standalone with series potential,
Mhm.
is what people say when they're doing queries. But yeah.
Yeah, I would also, again, I am even less of an expert, but from my research on the internet, when it comes to debuts, it's exceedingly rare to get signed for a series, from what I've
Yeah. Oh,
gathered. Yeah.
also your book needs to be under 100,000 words,
Yes, you don't want
I
it.
think.
Yeah, you don't want it to be because they don't know you yet from nowhere. So publishing
Yeah.
a longer work, you just have to think about this from the business side. The printing cost, the freaking distribution cost, and then nobody knows who you are, so they're not even sure how much they're gonna sell. So the longer the book, the worse, I would say. And
Yeah,
then if it's like a
for sure.
series from nowhere, you don't have any social media following or whatever, um,
Yeah.
is unlikely. It's unlikely. Although,
Yeah.
and especially if it's unfinished, that's also a huge deal. Anyway, series are just a huge risk for publishers because you know now they likely won't sign again. This is
Yeah.
just internet research. They won't
Yeah, I
sign
don't
you
think. Yeah.
for an
Yeah.
entire 10
That's
book
like,
series unless you already have
yeah.
some backing behind you.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
that would.
think that anything that's a series, I feel like you'd have to just pitch as like solo with potential or whatever.
Yeah, with series
'Cause obviously, if they
potential.
like
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
and they're like, "Oh, this will sell," then it's like, well, that's a no-brainer. They can sign you for the next ones, but they're not
yeah.
gonna. If it's like, yeah, you need to get to book 3 to pay this off, it's like that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. So I would like
Not gonna happen.
warmly suggest from somebody as equally as inexperienced probably to like not start out with a series, or at least if you're planning to
Yeah.
series, you make sure that the first book can also be a standalone just in case they don't pick up the second or the third or the fourth, right?
Yeah.
Okay. One more
Yeah.
question?
That makes
You
sense.
can do one
Sure.
more? Okay. Um let me just sift through. Uh Okay, let's do one from Laddie again, or Emperor Baby. Is there any good general guideline on how much of your story should adhere to conventions and how much should subvert it? I don't know if there is any guideline.
There's a guideline. Like, I think that you want your subversions to be plot related and
Mm-hmm.
not so much tech uh oh god, what's the word I'm thinking? Structure related. I don't know why I
Mm-hmm.
started the different word there. Um Structure related subversions are like beyond the capabilities of the vast majority of people, myself included. So like, and also I think that they're more like off-putting to people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your like sudden endings where everyone dies or whatever is
Mm-hmm.
like, oh boy, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're not gonna get. There's a reason that the structure of the vast majority of things follows a predictable format.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think, yeah, I would save your subversions for like the plot itself. So like, if your whatever archetypical plot that you're doing or whatever is like, you know, people might expect to go this way, and you can, subvert that for sure. Like, you don't want your book to be formulaic, but
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say that that's how I would look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
in that I
feel,
would not subvert the structure very often. At
yeah.
least not like big swings or whatever. Like obviously it's not like, when you say the catalyst should be at 10%, it's like, okay, if you're putting it at 15%, that's not like a subversion. You don't have to be slavish to the structure, but like, yeah, that's how I would look at it.
Two things. I feel like people, number one, rely too much on genre convention as an argument for their decisions, whether it be to subvert it or to keep at it. It's like a genre
Mm-hmm.
convention is, to me at least, a convention because a lot of people do it. That's just
Yeah.
what it is. But number two, it's like I feel like people, on the other hand, also underestimate the power of like a predictable structure and how it makes promises, and they're so sometimes focused on trying to break it in a new and interesting way. I find it's a lot harder than you think to tell a story within that
Yeah.
structure that's good. So before we try to like Jimmy rig it into something more interesting, I would strongly suggest trying to make a pretty straightforward one
Yeah.
and make it land.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like obviously you have your like mementos and
Mm,
stuff like that, but like they are very much the exception to the rule,
yeah.
and they're also even the ones that are successful, I don't think have as much broad appeal as something that's just like, your day one like save the cat screenplay or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
um that people's brains just like it, man. I don't know what to
No,
say. Like it's just
it's just the way stories have been told over freaking, I don't know, millennia
yeah.
even, that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know
absolutely.
people want to play around with the structure, but do you even know how to set up an expectation to subvert? That's also another question.
Yeah.
Do you
I definitely
even
think you need to
yeah.
Yeah. I think you need to be like an expert at the existing current structures before you attempt to, you know, bend that into something new
Yeah.
and artiste level.
I mean, there's structure and there's structure obviously. So if we're talking about Save the Cat,
Yeah.
which is pretty detailed of a structure in my opinion. I mean, it has its weak points
Yeah, I
here
mean
and
it's
there.
originally made for screenplays, and
Yeah,
screenplays are like a little more anal about where your beats have to hit, but like
yeah.
it's a good structure. Like it's, some, I don't know, some people will be bashing on it, but like again, if out of the hundreds of beta reads that I've done, like if most of them would just follow that, it would make them better.
Indeed.
Like
I
even
I
without changing much else, it's just like it's just a it forces you into rising action and
mhm.
into, you know, feeling like it forces progression into your story, and that is entertaining to feel like a story is building to something. Like that's why it's popular.
Yes. Yes, and I would also, yeah, we're almost done here. Vilorus left. But I would also agree that for me, that even with frigging litfic, vibey ass books, I do enjoy some direction. You know that
Yeah.
it's building to a point, which is the climax, and then you resolve it there. And I don't want that subverted. Even I think it would piss me off if it
Yeah.
meanders too much. Even with the vibey books, where I just give up on trying to find a structure, I feel like, okay, I still need to understand where we're going with things, you know?
Hmm.
Right. So, but the final frigging. Now I'm thinking in German. What's that? The final statement of this little event is that it would probably do a lot of writers good to just pick up any craft book that deals with story structure at all. And there are many. There are many. You'll probably find something that will suit you, whether it be the 7.1, it's Save the Cat, even the freaking 3-act story structure or whatever. I feel like to
Yeah,
tie.
I always, before I even
Yeah.
did like Save the Cat and stuff, I just did like 3 act. It's just like Act One, establish stuff. Act Two, at the end of Act Two, everything's shitty, and then Act Three is like the climax. I mean, that's like really like basic, but
Yeah.
that's kind of just. I mean, I feel like uh, even when I didn't really understand structure, like I kind of just gravitated towards writing that because that's how like 90% of things are,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I agree, and especially if you're a beginner. Especially if you're a
Yeah.
beginner and you're just learning the ropes of how to write scenes. Even like on a scene level, like the escalation, the de-escalation, I think that's what the 7-point structure is, right? You build tension and then you resolve it and then you build
The
another
seven po-
tension
this
point.
the 7 point is yeah, the 7 point is kind of like a good one for like really early outlining. Like I
Mhm.
said, because of the way that the order in which it has you create the beats just kind of like forces you to have all of the stuff in the back half linked very directly to the first half, which is
Mhm.
obviously a really good way to write things. And then of course once you do that, you can kind of like do a more detailed one if you want. I find that one the best for like really early stage plotting.
Yeah.
But I do like it. I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah. And also, if you are very averse to outlining, such as myself, pre-writing, there are ways for pantsers to outline their book too. You at some point, at some stage in your novel, you're gonna need an outline regardless. You know, you're gonna have to see like, okay, what did I write down? What exact points did I put in this chapter? And you can do that
Mm-hmm.
retroactively and dynamically. An outline is not prescriptive, etc., etc. For like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more helpful to outline even as a pantser in broad strokes, just so you know where you're going with things. Because I know how it is if you
Yeah.
pants, you just like lose sight. Like, where did the plot go? Why am I suddenly in this point? Yeah, right. It's just a shame that Charlito only came now because we're about to end the event.
Rip. You hate to see it.
But thank you so much, Ezra, for taking the
Of
time
course.
to discuss this. I had a lot of fun. I always enjoy talking literature with you.
I did have a lot of fun. It's
um,
always a good time.
it's a nice break from the routine I'm currently having. Um,
Thesis life.
yes, fuck it. My God, I'm so sick and tired. But like, anyway, I'm not gonna get into that here. Um, and we'll probably do this sometime again. I'll let you know
Yeah,
whenever you have
otherwise,
time.
we could always do like the live editing too. If somebody wants to submit
Oh,
something and have
true,
it edited, I would do that. That's
true,
all.
true,
That's
true.
usually like when it comes to line editing, I think that's the best thing to do anyway.
Yeah, are your DMs open? I don't know.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, so Ezra's DMs are open if you want to volunteer something for the live edit at some point in time. I'll let you guys know and you can
Yeah.
message him and I'll organize the event. Okay, that is it.
Nice.
Thank you
All
for being
done.
here again. Well done,
Thanks for
Ezra.
having me. Thanks.
And we'll catch you in the next one.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Disconnect quietly. Nice.